All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. This is the Angry Asian Uncles. I am your host, Reynold, and my co-host.
Hi, it's Vic. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year again. Uh, okay, and then we have a guest with us, Rick. Rick, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Rick Sorensen, and um, I'm an artist and author, and uh, I write about creativity, about creating and aesthetics. And I wrote a book, Art the Church's Response, because a friend told me I should write a book on art for Christians, so I did.
Nice.
Nice. Okay. Uh, all right, and okay, wow. Okay, so you're into art. Okay, so what's I guess what we want to say, why don't you just describe what kind of like what exactly art like the art you sort of focus on? Is it the more the drawings, paintings, or
Yes, drawing and painting is what I went to school for.
okay.
And so I always have a love for landscape paintings. Uh, no matter what the culture is, I can appreciate it. So something I enjoy. So whatever aspect of art, then I can appreciate it.
Okay.
I wish it was that easy for everyone, right? Reynolds, Rick's friend told him to write a book, so he did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
I wish we were all that spontaneous.
Right. Just do it, right?
Do it, yeah. Like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, easy. You want me to write a book? I'll do it. Okay, here's a book. You know?
Right.
Kudos to
Well,
Rick for
it wasn't quite that simple.
that. I'll
But you
give you a
made it
My
sound
microfilm
simple,
as a
right?
book, you know.
well, my
Uh,
journey in writing wasn't. It was a long journey, so it wasn't quite that simple. I had to learn how to write as I was writing.
How many years
okay.
did it take for you to complete the book?
Yeah, it's probably. Um, I started. Well, I'll tell you quickly how. Um, I grew up in an American school, so I didn't, and I was just average. I didn't have, you know, I wasn't the smart person going to all the smart classes. And so when I went to college, I took writing and we're writing essays, learning how to write essays. And I just didn't understand the structure. I would be in the class and I would work really hard at it, but I would fail. And so I would drop out of the class and get it incomplete just so I wouldn't have a failure on my record.
Oh,
And it wasn't till later when I went to art school that I learned that my process of writing was the same as drawing. And so that was very freeing for me. And then I also took a class, intro, Introduction to Museum Work. Um, and the teacher was um, the editor for the historic magazine that this museum had. And she just casually told us one day that all these historians, they have PhDs or more, that they didn't know how to write. She'd have to rewrite their articles for them so
oh,
it could
interesting.
be in the magazine. And I thought to myself, well, I can write as bad as a guy that has a PhD. And so that was very freeing for me. And so when I began to start writing, so how I started writing was years later after I graduated, that I was on my way to work. I was hanging wallpaper at the time. And as I was stuck in traffic during rush hour in the morning, then this voice tells me I should write that book I've had in mind.
Hmm.
So when I get home, I tell my wife that about that, and she gives me a stenographer's pad, and I fill that up that weekend.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
And that was the basis for me beginning to write.
by the
So I
way, you're
organized.
dropping out of class, so you won't get a fail. among Asian uncles, that's called strategy. That's smart move on your part. Like, that's probably a move that Reynolds and I would pull. I'm
Right,
thinking
that's strategery.
it's a strategy.
Oh
You know?
yeah, yeah. It was very frustrating for me because I was really trying hard and I just couldn't get it. I mean,
Hmm.
I understood what was, what they wanted, but there's something in my head just not clicking. So it
Probably
was
how I
very
feel
frustrating.
about math, actually, Rick. For you, it's probably languages, maybe the alphabet. For me, it's numbers. And also, like, it's
Yeah,
really hard on me because, like, the Asian stereotype is like, oh, Asians are supposed to be good at math, but I'm not. That was a source of shame.
yeah.
It's an outlier.
My grandfather was super mathematic, and I couldn't do anything in my head. I always have to write it out. So I I had family like that as well.
Yeah, yeah. We all have some kind of weakness, and but I think it's very interesting to me that you heard a voice telling you what you should do. Do you think it's your intuition, your gut, or maybe a guardian angel? What do you think it was?
I actually think it was God who
Hmm.
was getting me to get started doing that. And so the whole idea of me having to learn to write, happened years before when I had to learn how to work out, um, trying to understand the whole ideas. Because what I was writing about was about art and about creating and more in the nature of art. So I wasn't only working out um, how to understand these complex ideas, but I was also learning how to write itself. And I
All
would
right.
give it
You
to
mentioned a
people.
while ago that later on you found out that the writing process was sort of similar to the art process. Can you tell us a bit more about the art process for you?
So I've always loved art, and I started learning how to draw in middle school in seventh grade. And so the first class, the teacher shut out all the lights and put a white ball on a small table with the white sheet of paper underneath it, and put a light directly over it about a 45-degree-ish angle, and demonstrated to us how to see the shadows that were
Wow.
being, um,
Sounds like a cool teacher.
you know, so, I found out later this was like a Renaissance technique that, and he, we were so young, but he was not treating us as kids. We were expected to see everything in the adult level. Uh, and um, so the next class, then we had to now do it ourselves. Began, and so um, that began my process of learning how to draw. Was learning how to draw the shadows that were on the ball and cast onto the table, and then he would add other objects to it, and then later bones. And so the bones, the bones were from cows, and so they were um, the bones itself are really interesting. They're
Yeah.
um,
And this was all
they're not straight.
back
They're
in grade school or middle school. When was this?
seventh grade.
Oh, wow.
So
Seventh
yes,
grade?
middle school.
It
Oh,
sounds like a
middle
Yes,
really
school.
cool teacher. Was this a teacher for art class? Was this an art teacher?
yes. This was just in a regular middle school. Um, so yes,
Oh, okay.
so yeah, I've looked back over my education, and this was the basis for everything that I began to learn, and it was
Ah,
a great foundation even going to college in art
I wish
school.
we had more teachers like that, right, Reynolds? I mean, this sounds like a really cool teacher ahead of his or her time, and
yeah.
really just employing those techniques even for seventh grade.
Yeah. I think it's like a
So
teacher
yes, and
more
then
like.
in eighth grade,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
oh no, I just agree.
Yeah.
Eighth grade did the same thing, and that
Oh,
just
really?
put everything deeper into you.
Oh. And so that kind of
and you gain
fostered your
confidence in yourself.
appreciation. Did that foster your appreciation for art later on in life as well? That's why you decided to pursue it?
Oh yeah, I mean, this was the beginning of a mature journey, not just being a kid, but
Right.
you're able to be more mature in how you look at things and how you appreciate things, because you're actually seeing the reality of, or understanding the reality of what you're seeing, because
Oh,
you're not only observing it and then drawing it, you're putting that observation down, but now you're actually understanding what's going on. So the whole idea of studying light, you start to see how light not only comes upon an object, but how it bounces around underneath the object. And as you add more objects to it, how it bounces through the objects, and then different materials will tell you um, what different materials will interact with light in a different way. And so you're, in a sense, learning how to scientifically see what light is doing in a practical
Wow. So
way.
for context, where did you have your education? Where are you based? Just to help us understand your background.
Okay, so I grew up in Idaho,
I
and
see.
this was a small town outside of Boise, Idaho, which is the capital.
right.
Hmm.
And so yes, my education was, I think, extraordinary, as you're saying. The teacher really taught us how to um, understand what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
then,
used to.
after I graduated high school, I went to college in Boise, because that's what you're supposed to do.
Mhm.
Yeah, right. Go to college.
And then after 1 year of college, I moved away, and
Mhm.
I moved across the country to Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
That's a far way, far.
Right.
It
It's a
is,
Yeah,
big
that's very
yeah,
far
difference.
from Boise, Idaho. Yeah.
it's like
Yes.
3,500 miles in a diagonal.
What
So
prompted
it
that
wasn't,
move? I mean, why Florida of all places? So what happened?
well, um, I moved there because our family knew a family, so I wasn't just going, you know, totally by myself.
Hmm.
And so I worked different jobs, and basically I just grew up
Hmm.
from a kid to an adult. And then after living there for 5 years, then I went up to an art school outside of Boston, and I went there for um, my college
Wait.
time.
So from Florida, then you moved to Boston?
Yeah, just outside of Boston.
Oh, you're
Yes,
just like
Oh,
traversing the country here,
okay.
going everywhere.
yes. So
Exploring.
uh, uh, going to Boston was more of a culture shock than moving from Idaho to Florida.
Oh, how come?
Yeah.
So
Um,
yes, it was an interesting time.
Oh, what was the difference that made it such a culture shock?
Um, I mean, I was around Miami, so it wasn't going to a big city. That wasn't really a culture shock to me.
Oh, I see.
But it was the way that um, people think there was there. Um, the people of Massachusetts, especially where I was at, which was just north of Boston, um, that's one of the oldest areas, inhabitable areas of the country, and they
Right.
know their history very well.
Hmm.
And so the way that Boston is a big college town. I think I saw there's like over 800 colleges and universities in
Yes.
in the in Boston and the immediate surrounding areas of Boston. So
Yes.
there's a lot of um, people in transit there. They're just there temporarily, but the people that are from that area, they have this way of thinking that the country, you know, they've been part of the country and the history of the country since before its founding. And they are aware of that even more so than New York. And so there's this almost elitism that they have. And it doesn't matter if they're rich or poor, they understand that, you know.
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
But what prompted the move to Boston this time then? So you moved to Florida.
Yeah.
So you moved to Boston after Florida. Was it in pursuit of your art, or what was
It
it?
was. I was applying to different art schools, and so as I got thinking about where the top art schools would be, then that New York City, it'd be New England, California would be where the top art schools would be in the country.
Oh, I see.
And I didn't want to go to California. And I mean, I grew up in the West. I've traveled all over the West, so I understand
Right.
what the conditions of California are. It's
Yes.
not a place I really wanted to go to.
Okay.
And I was just feeling more geared towards Boston than I was New York City. So I applied to 2 art schools around Boston. I applied to one in Michigan, and I applied to one in Baltimore. And so the one in Baltimore and the one outside of Boston accepted me, and the other 2 didn't. So I went to the cheaper one.
See, Reynold,
I was
again,
paying
strategic.
Right. Right.
I was
Right.
paying
You sound very much like an Asian, see?
Right.
So far through our conversation, you make strategic move after strategic move.
Right.
It
Exactly.
was cheaper. I didn't want to, get a bad mark, so I dropped it. It's like, good for you.
I go with one that saves me money.
There's an Asian person in you somewhere, Rick.
Well, I have read a little bit from, different Chinese things. Both.
I knew it. I knew it.
So,
Okay.
where did so you said you studied Chinese art or
Not formally, but yes, casually. My parents used to go to China, and they were part of this organization that supplied English teachers to the universities in China.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
my father's a counselor, so they would do counseling to the teachers. At that time there was a lot of feeling of isolation to the Westerners being in China. There might be some, if they were a couple or had families, there would be, marriage counseling going on, and or a couple.
This must have been back in the 90s, right, Rick?
Yes, even in the 80s.
Oh wow!
My parents.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is before when China was just beginning some
to
of
open
its.
Up. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, just the beginning phases of it. And so my parents would be
Western English teachers to accept a job teaching in China. That's very courageous. It's not an easy move. It wasn't the fashion back then, and for somebody to move there with their family, that's a big move.
Oh yes, it is. And so, so my parents would bring me back these art supplies. Okay. So I had ink stones, or not ink stones, the ink sticks.
Yeah, right.
And brushes. I get paper. This was the really cheap rice paper, not the good quality stuff.
Hey man, whatever works, right?
Well, I mean, when you're having to learn, then you're using what's available. So so this was when I lived in Fort Lauderdale, and
Mm.
there was a Pearl art supply, which doesn't exist anymore. But this was a big art supply store, kind of like Costco, but for art supplies.
Oh,
And so there was a worker there that was going to give a class on how to. They called it sumi, which is a Japanese approach,
Right,
but
right,
they
right.
used a Chinese book um, in order to, they photocopied this Chinese book on how to do it. And so that was my introduction to Chinese painting, was learning how to use these materials that I was getting from my parents.
Yeah, just as a side note, did you know that most of the Chinese calligraphy or painting brushes, they're either made out of, well, I think it was it horsehair, and the really
Yes,
expensive ones would be made out of baby hair. Have you heard about that? Reynolds, have you heard about that? Like the really
I've
expensive
heard
ones.
I
the
know the
baby
horse
hair,
hair, but not the baby
Oh
hair.
yeah, those are really
which
Maybe, yeah.
I
expensive
have
ones.
some brushes that are made out of wolf hair.
Yeah,
Right.
but
So
it's very,
they're really top notch, like the high
yeah.
end brushes. 用胎毛is like baby hair. So basically, that's
Oh,
why it's so hard to come by, right? Like, first of all,
right,
the
yeah.
parents have to agree.
You're gonna shave my
Yeah,
baby's head
yeah.
for this brush.
And secondly, you need to collect a lot of baby hair. I mean, babies don't
Yeah,
have much
right.
hair to begin with, right?
Well, and you have to let it grow out really long in order to
Yeah,
be able to see.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. You
So
can't
that's
be
like
little short stubs, right?
exactly that's a high end, Chinese calligraphy brush. But let's backtrack a little bit. So,
Yeah.
Rick, I'm just curious. Did you enjoy your experience in Boston in art school? What was it like for you? Did you enjoy the process?
Um, I lived in probably the nicest area. Um, so the town I lived in was called Beverly, which is across the bay from Salem. So that's
Mm.
like an hour north from the center of Boston. Um, I had friends in Boston, so I would go there on the weekend, and I worked. So I worked two part-time jobs and went to school full time because I'm paying for this myself, so I had to live, and
So
so
fun.
yeah, so it wasn't easy for me.
Yeah.
The first Probably the first 2 or 3 years, um, growing up in the West, it was the way the West is physically. I mean, the physical land. You can
Right.
look in large, long distances and see the edge of the horizon, see the
Mm,
shape of the mountains. Um, Everything was in Boston was dense foliage. It's right on the water, so there's lots of trees. The only place to be able to go and look out was on the ocean, and that's just a horizon line, just a flat line. And
Yeah.
so you don't really see the sculptural qualities of the land itself, and that was hard for me.
interesting.
Even in Florida, it was kind of like that. So but the but Florida is essentially just flat. Even the land itself, you're not as you go inland, it's not that hilly where I was at. Um, it's just a maybe 10, 20 feet above sea level in some of the higher places. So everything is essentially flat. So going to Boston, it was hilly, but you couldn't see because of all the trees. And
Oh,
so that aspect was hard for me.
oh,
And
Interesting.
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I just love to see the physical land. And growing up and going all over the West, you really see that.
Yeah.
Spoken like a true artist, Reynolds. Rick here is very much affected by topography. Like
Yeah.
the physical environment affects
Actually,
your work.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was something that really highlighted that to me was in between my junior and senior year. I flew home to Idaho, and my dad and we drove around Idaho and up into Montana. It was like a 2 week trip, and I'm just basically just looking at the land, sometimes taking pictures. Um, well, this was before, the iPhone or phones had cameras, so you actually had to use a camera in
Hmm.
order
Oh,
to take pictures.
with actual
Yeah.
And
film. You gotta go develop it at Costco or something.
exactly. And so basically for every picture I took, I could have taken 1,000 pictures. Um, and I was taking a lot of pictures, but there's just so many things that you could have captured, and you're only taking just a small percentage of it.
Yeah. You must love national parks then.
Right. Well, we went up to Glacier National Park in
Ooh, that sounds
Montana.
fun. Yeah. Wow, that's a
So,
pretty good one. Yeah.
but what was happening to me was that I felt this disconnect, and just driving around and seeing the land itself was reconnecting me to myself.
Wow. It
I
almost sounds like you're recharging your batteries when
I
you do
really
that.
was. I didn't realize
Yeah.
that during that, but later on, when I look back on it, that's really what was going on.
Almost like
And
spiritual nourishment, right, Rick?
it really was. And I kind of had read about things like that, but until I experienced it, then I really didn't understand that we as human beings are connected to the land that
Mm.
we grew up in. And
Intimate connected, actually.
yeah. And so when we go to other places, we can be connected to those places or we may not be. And
Absolutely.
That's true.
it takes us to really physically being in there and absorbing all of that you really start to understand.
That's such a good point. Yeah, Reynold, have you ever felt that way before?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's like that feeling where you go to like different countries and you feel like, oh, this is uh I don't feel I feel like a fish out of water here.
Mm-hmm.
Or you go to some countries like for me sometimes, well, for me when I go back to town I feel like I'm home, maybe, because that's where my ancestors are. But
You mean when you come back here to Taiwan?
yeah, when I go back to Taiwan I feel like, oh, this I feel more home than when I'm in California, but I was born and grew up in California. So I feel like things like that. But there's like other countries where you go to, you feel like, oh, I feel like I'm among my people or something. I feel like I fit in here versus like other places. So yeah, I definitely understand that feeling of that you're connected somewhere, whether it's the people, whether it's the community or the land itself. I think, yeah, there's just some places. I mean, some people like the ocean, some people like the mountains. I think
Right.
yeah, everyone belongs somewhere, right?
Yeah, Rick, it's almost like a past life thing, isn't it? Like you go someplace completely new, you've never been there before, yet you feel like you're at home, like you've been there before.
um, yes, some places I've traveled, it's true, because like you, I've traveled to different countries, and so there are some places that you feel less of a stranger in than others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you just feel right at home.
Yeah,
My
exactly.
dilemma right now is I've been to so many places and I'm not sure anymore where I'm connected to. like, like it's like a mishmash. It's like chop
Right.
suey. Like I've traveled to so many places and lived in so many places that I just feel like I've taken a little part of every place that I've been to. And since I can't really recreate that in another place, I just try to internalize it and bring a part of it with me. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I do.
you're like
But
a
anyway,
melting
back
pot.
to what we were saying. So, art school experience. Okay, so I don't know. I gather from what you're saying is that it was a good experience, but it had its challenges. And in fact, when you went home, the kind of reconnecting with the land felt like it recharged your batteries. So
Mhm.
going to different places like Boston, Florida, like you had to you had to sort of overcome some of these obstacles. Is that fair to say?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
With
Okay.
Boston, it was a schedule more than anything else, and I did have to recharge myself, which I didn't realize it at the time until it happened. And
Mm.
so, my last year of art school, the I used the pictures that I took in on that trip
Right.
as my senior thesis. So I did paintings
Mm.
of
Oh, okay.
landscapes there.
Mm.
Of
Oh,
just of all the traveling around, I did different landscapes,
oh,
Wow.
okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
and so the that was a different landscape than what the people back, in New England were used to. In fact,
Mm.
growing up in the West, um, the people I was around never had been to the West. They'd
Mm.
gone to Europe, but they never went to the western part of the United States.
Mm.
And so one person told me, "Oh yeah, I've been to the West. I've been to Chicago." That was their
That's the
furthest
extent of their travel to the West.
west that
Yes.
they'd ever
Wow.
been.
Rick,
And I'm thinking,
what's
oh
your
yeah, you
sorry, Rick, sorry to interrupt. What's your preferred
oh
medium
no, that's fine.
for your artwork? Do you like oil, watercolor, or sculpture? What's your preferred medium?
Yeah.
Um, it's usually acrylics because I can do the techniques of oil, but it
Oh,
dries faster.
Mm.
So
okay.
um, I can usually get the look of oil. And some people that paint in oil, um, they can't tell that what I do is not oil.
Mm. Wow,
Oh,
interesting.
interesting.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but acrylics will just allow you to go faster. It
Yeah.
will dry instead of waiting for some colors to take a long time to dry. Then you can just um, keep going.
Mm.
Um, uh, do some watercolor. I've done uh, um, printmaking, um, whether silk screen or woodblock prints, which is
Wow.
that's the oldest form of printmaking
Oh
is
yeah, sure. Like
carving
the
out
Hokusai,
carving.
the most
Right.
famous one, right? Yeah, the Great Wave.
So it's all um, trying to think about what the idea and what is the best way for the idea to come out, whether it's three
Yeah.
dimensional, whether it's um, going to be a painting or a print, then it's whatever is going to convey the idea the best.
Hmm. What are you focused on right now? Do you have any current projects that you're working on?
I've been focused on writing, is what I've really been focused on lately.
Hmm.
The other art form.
So yes, it's um,
Oh,
so yeah, that's what I've been focused on.
okay. And then you're earlier before we started recording, you said you might have some insight about the difference of Western and Eastern art, like because
Yes,
the medium
when
we
I was
use
starting to
is
learn,
different.
so when I
Yeah.
was starting to try to understand the difference um, of, or how can I tell the difference between Chinese and Japanese art was kind of,
Yeah.
and you walk into a museum, and if you're not paying attention and you don't know which area you're going into,
Mhm.
then I started to ask myself a question:
Right.
is the work spiritually oriented or man centered?
Hmm.
And
Okay.
that will at least 7 or 8 times out of 10 give me the right answer. And the times that I'm wrong, it's usually because I haven't really looked at it carefully enough.
Oh,
And
okay.
so the what I see as the main difference is that Chinese painting is more spiritually oriented, and so they're whether it's landscapes or it's um, just the different uh, things that Chinese painting usually has.
Yeah.
The whole orientation of Chinese painting is, um, say, like bamboo. It's not just painting bamboo, but it represents um, like flexibility, that resilience. So there's these associations that go to each um, representation, but it's even beyond that. It's also has a spiritual quality that is being conveyed.
It's so interesting you bring that up. Can I just interject for a second?
Oh,
Tell you
sure.
something.
Yeah.
It's so interesting you bring that up because when I visit the National Palace Museum here in Taiwan, I notice, for example, when I go through, because the exhibits are divided into different time periods, right? For example,
Right.
the Qing Dynasty, Ming Dynasty, is it a Tang Dynasty? Is it even, prehistoric? There's like a lot of different time periods. And what I
Right.
noticed, it's so interesting you bring it up because what I notice is for the jade collection, if you look at the difference between some of the latter dynasties and some of the earlier dynasties in China, I noticed that the quality was different. And so the jade that was preferred by the earlier dynasties were very subtle. The color, it wasn't bright green, it was more of like oh, what's the color? What's the closest color I can think of? It's sort of like a it's very light, almost grayish. So when you think
Mm-hmm.
of jade, usually you think it's green, right? Or white and green combined. But there are so many variations, so many shades of jade. But I noticed that most of the artwork, or most of the ornaments from that period, from the Tang Dynasty and before that, even going all the way back to the first dynasty, they were so subtle. They were not in your
Yeah.
face. It was almost like a exercise or a meditation in simplicity, almost like they
Right.
wanted you to reflect on this piece. So the color would be very light, sometimes very white, almost to the point where it's grayish. And then you move on to the latter dynasties, especially the last one, the Qing dynasty, which is, that's it. I mean, the ancient days of the emperors were coming to an end, right? But towards the latter dynasties, everything was so bombastic. Everything was like loud colors. Like we want like almost like neon green. You know what I mean? It's like it's very loud. It's very blingy. It will shine. It will catch your eye from across the room. So most of the ornaments were like that, either bracelets or necklaces or earrings or headpieces. I mean, it was
Mm-hmm.
just so interesting to be that such contrast. Like we call it Chinese art, but I mean, it
Yeah.
spans such a long period, like thousands of years, that you can even see just through looking at some of the artwork, perhaps the mentality of the people from that era, from different eras, right? Or
Oh,
like
yeah.
what they
Right.
give value to. So you can almost see like a descent into more emphasis on materialism towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was loud. But in the early days, it was like a simple jade circle. And I was like looking at it, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm not
Right.
even sure what that was for. So I had to read the description down there and said, okay, so this was like just something that they carried. It wasn't a necklace. It wasn't really anything that you would think of traditionally as being some kind of ornament. It was just something that they carried around with them. And I'm like, oh, okay. It really forces you to reflect. And just one last thing, even before I go, just even the bronze pieces from the earlier periods, they were very mysterious, almost like something you would find out of a video game. It's like, well, what's this thing? Like, I can't tell what it's for, but it's never really like, oh yeah, look at me, I have this bronze vase. or like I have this bronze wine vessel. It wasn't like that in the early days. And the latter part is always like almost like our current culture, which is, people want to show off, like, hey, check it out. I've got money. So check out my
Right.
bronze vase, like
Yeah.
just it ties into what you were saying, basically. It reminded me of that. Anyway, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that's all true. Um, so then the difference that I observed in Japanese art is that I see that as more man-centered. Everything is flatter. So in there, there's a naturalism that is flatter in patterns that are like in the Japanese prints, say of actors or of people. The kimono designs are all just flat, and even the the space itself is flatter than what you see in Chinese art. So that gets me most of the way in how to tell the difference. And so there's um, Japanese Zen paintings, which is more along the lines of Chinese painting. Kind of, if I don't look hard enough, can throw me off. But even that, if you compare the two between Chinese and Japanese paintings, even that the Zen paintings are a bit flatter than the Chinese. So,
Interesting. Maybe you were
so that's how
looking
I
at
began to
Qing
learn
Dynasty,
how the difference.
Qing Dynasty Chinese art, where it's loud and textured.
Yeah,
Maybe maybe you're looking at the Qing Dynasty stuff.
What about when it comes to the difference between, like, again, the Western? I feel because I never studied art before. I dabbled when growing up, taking some art class, or like you doing it in high school and stuff. But most of my art comes from comic books, right? The Western American comic books
right.
and the
Well, of course,
Japanese
especially
anime
teenagers.
are just, yeah, very big difference. So
Right.
you know, uh, I assume that the art, the other art, have a vast difference as well.
Yeah. Comics is an introduction to a lot of teenagers,
Yeah,
I love
and it
comics.
yeah,
doesn't matter the culture. It
yeah.
seems to introduce a lot of teenagers because teenagers that are interested in drawing will be copying the the comics
The
of their culture
Oh
because that's
yes,
what's
yes,
available.
yes.
Or
That's what I did. I just copied. I just drew whatever I was reading.
so, but I mean, comics can teach you different things
Mhm,
as well. And so just the comics themselves and the way it's structured into sequential pictures and
mhm.
how you have to follow this sequence in order to see the story.
Yeah.
Um, that's every comic book has that type of structure.
Hmm.
So that will teach you how to follow a sequence of pictures to see the whole idea.
Right. Yeah.
As far as then looking into um, a picture that represents the total idea itself, then each culture has that. And so I've come to see that um, when we look at a picture, the impact hits us all at once. Though it may take us time to try to understand the idea, but we're getting the full impact of that picture all at once, which is totally different than any other art form. Every other art form, you have to follow, like comics, a sequence. And once that sequence is complete, then you get the total of the idea, whether that's music or writing, dance, everything follows that whole structure of sequence. But when you see a picture, that's totally different than any other way that it's approached, or every other art form approaches it. So I think that's one of the reasons why we have trouble understanding visual art sometimes. As far as the difference of like Chinese art to Western art, Chinese art, as I touched on before, has a spiritual quality to it, and it uses metaphor, but it's deeper than just the metaphor itself. And then if you go back to the origins of Chinese painting, which is calligraphy, then each brushstroke is as important as every other brushstroke. And that shows you the strengths or weaknesses of its creator. Because Chinese painting is judged along the same lines as calligraphy. And so it's not only looking at the whole, but now you're looking at each individual stroke to see is the creator, the painter, what's their character? Do they have weak character? Do they have a strong character? And you all see it through the outcome of the brushstroke. So that's a whole different way of seeing things than the Western approach, which is not based upon, it's only based upon the execution of the idea. And is that idea clear? So that's kind of the main difference I see in the Western approach and the Eastern approach.
Wow, that's really deep. That's a lot to think about, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I have another question. What do you think about? I don't know what the art is called. Like, is it called prop art? Like, you know, like the art where they do a lot of crazy stuff, like tape a banana to the wall, or like,
And then the
or
guy
like a
ate him.
big rubber ducky, or and all those like sort of weird non-traditional, painting,
Right.
and not your traditional drawing, painting, and sculpturing. These sort of
Right.
yeah, I don't
So,
know
so all
where
that
they're supposed
is,
to go. Yeah.
so all that it's just concepts.
Oh,
So you're just conveying this concept. And so,
mhm.
um, like, I think you gave a good example of the banana, taped to the wall.
Yeah,
No one
yeah,
would really say that that's art.
yeah,
And you're saying, how can we see that's art?
yeah.
But it's doing is making um, just saying that it's art because I said it's art and I stuck it
Mm.
on the wall. So that's the only thing that's being said is the guy that did it said, well, I say it's art because I did it. So that's it.
Oh, right.
But as
Sold that
far as,
banana for a lot of money.
yeah, or I don't know if you saw in the news, there was an artist last few months that sold an invisible, um, I think it was a sculpture, but
Oh,
there was nothing there. So he's saying it's invisible,
right.
but there's nothing there.
Oh
He was
man.
just taking it even one step further.
Oh man.
And someone maybe even bought it. I don't know. There's a lot of stupid people out there.
I can say if it's like made with like clear glass or something, or or it's like transparent like that. But yeah, sometimes these don't you think sometimes these art
Right. So
concepts are
that's the whole.
pushing
That's,
the line a little?
well, it goes between just an idea itself and like the banana. I think that's just a good example.
Yeah.
It will push the line, saying, you know, this is the idea I want to convey, that this banana with duct tape on it, keeping it to the wall, is art.
Right.
But that's not really art.
Right.
Um, Probably a good basic um, way to define art is it's an expression of an idea. So in that definition, then you could say that that banana is art because it's an expression of an idea. But we know that to really express an idea well, it's more than just sticking something on a wall.
True.
So by that definition, that guy who took the banana and ate it was also expressing an idea, right?
Yeah.
Making
Well,
a statement. Yeah.
the idea is that everything's consumable.
And then the rubber ducky, Reynolds, you know what happened
Yeah.
to the rubber ducky here in Taiwan? It deflated one day and it looked so sad and they just took it out.
Oh. Right.
So those types of art never have any good outcomes.
Right.
And
It doesn't last.
people don't really care, what happens
Right.
to it. It's not like there are some masterpieces where if somebody, throws soup at it or spray
Right.
paint all over it or botch the botch the restoration. Remember that the story about the Jesus painting that was botched by this woman.
Yeah.
Those are the things that for some reason as a human being it hurts when you see something like that. And that's my definition of how something is special, something
Yeah.
that is art. For some reason you can't explain, but it hurts you to see something destroyed.
Yeah.
Right. But whereas for the banana or the rubber ducky, I was like, I couldn't care less. It's like, yeah, somebody ate a banana, duct tape to
Right.
a wall. So what? Just tape another one, right?
Well, I
Just
think
like
that's a good basic idea, is that you can both feel it. Um, I so so I think you gave good examples of when someone tried to ruin or alter, you know, different things that we think are great.
mhm.
Then we have this emotional response to it, almost a physical response that, oh, all the soup on the painting now has to get taken off and to try to
Right.
restore that painting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Then it's like, oh, we care about these things, and you do physically almost feel this feeling of when something's um, trying to ruin it.
Yeah. It's almost a physical response, right? It kind of
Yeah.
hurts to see it happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's different, right? Pop culture art or pop art, modern art. I don't
Yeah.
know.
To Rick's point about the differences between like Chinese painting and Western painting, I feel that after looking at a couple of both sides, for me, the Chinese or the Eastern type of painting, done with brushes and ink, um, I feel they're better at capturing the ephemeral, better at capturing something that's more fleeting, almost dreamlike, right? So it's like the medium lends itself well to that, capturing something that's almost just it passes you by very quickly, and it like goes up in a cloud of smoke. I think it captures some of that, and then that's for me at least. And then for the Western art, and I traveled when I was a student, and I look at some of the masterpieces. For example, when I was in the Netherlands, and I was like, oh wow, these are so impactful, right? Like it captures so many things in one image, and it's very grounded. Although there are other types also like impressionist paintings and stuff, but for me generally, if I had to make a distinction between Eastern and Western art, is that the medium lends itself better to capturing something that's almost like misty for the Eastern, and then for the Western, it's very clear and it's very bold. And to me, that's how I see it.
I think it depicts the just a different culture. American, Western culture very bold, or Eastern is very like the art they do, very spiritual, I guess, or something.
Well,
uh,
also it speaks to the culture, right? I mean,
yeah,
us Easterners, we're always like keep your head down, like be
mhm.
conform and
Subtle. Yeah,
yeah, very subtle. It's always like, and there are good and bad things about it. Like the bad things about it, for example, is like you have to learn to read in between the lines when you're talking to an Easterner. Sometimes, like they can't just
right.
say no right directly. I can't just reject you outright. Like
Yeah.
I'll say five different things, but really what I'm trying to say is like, sorry, I can't do it, and I hope you pick
Right.
up on that.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Right.
Whereas if you're
Yeah. Well,
dealing with a Westerner, it's like a no means no, but this is nothing personal.
no,
I can't do it.
right. Don't argue with me.
Yeah, but Easterners would be so embarrassed to say no directly, right?
Yeah.
It even reflects on the culture.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, yeah, definitely reflects on the art itself too. Yeah. Even in comics, back to the comic things. Yeah. Like, American superheroes are all big and bulky, like Superman and Batman and all, like big old muscles. And then you see like Japanese anime, like even the superheroes are all small, small in stature.
It could be like your classmate from next door. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It could be any other
yeah,
guy.
yeah. Uh,
Yeah, and
but
also
yeah,
like on comics, I think a lot of the Eastern comics, there are a lot of slice of life comics. Like they're not necessarily about superheroes or like superpowers. It's always like a slice of life thing. It could be about a guy running an inn and then meeting interesting people that come in. They can make a series about that.
yeah,
That's very
right.
that's a very Eastern type of manga that you can read.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
most of the Western comics that I collected as a kid, it's amazing. Don't get me wrong. Like, oh yeah, Wolverine. Look at
Yeah,
those adamantium claws and cut through
right.
anything.
Yeah,
Factor, like,
you gotta
and
be.
all the girls look hot.
You got a big, you got to be big and bold, superpowers
Oh
and
yeah.
everything. It has to be like needs to be like a motion picture in a book.
Right.
Yeah.
But before we go, I'd like to ask you
Yeah.
a little bit more about your book. So tell us a little bit about it. So what's your message to the world writing this book for everybody?
Um, so, as I referred to before, a friend told me I should write a book on art for Christians. And so, as I began to look at what the Bible says about that, about art and creativity, um, then I started in Genesis, where, Genesis 1:1 says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." And the word for create in Hebrew is bara, which is to create from a process. And so I began to look at what the Hebrew and the Greek words were actually that were being used in different art concepts throughout the Bible. And so when you see what the actual word means, it makes you think about things a little differently, because we don't normally think about, when God created the heavens and the earth, there was a process that happened. And so you think about it differently. And then later on in Genesis, it says, "Let us make man in our own image, male and female." And so I began to break that apart too, because if we're made in God's image, then what we just saw, that God is creator, and part of that image is that we are also creators. So we have to create. It is just something in our DNA that we have to do. And if you think about that, everything that you see around you originated in someone's imagination. From the time of prehistoric times, when everything was what we consider primitive, it's really more undeveloped. There were civilizations then did develop things, but it was according to what they had access at the time, and that's only accelerated throughout history. So we have to create. So that's probably the main message that I want to get across is that we as people have to create because that's part of who we are.
Mm. That's powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost like an
Insightful.
imperative.
Yes.
No, Rick's right, because when we don't have an outflow for all that creativity, it
Yeah.
almost feels like you're being trapped.
Right. Exactly right. And it's not until we, in whatever way that we kind of gravitate to, is, I mean, the areas of creativity that we gravitate to, if we don't do that, things like depression come about, but they begin to alleviate when we start to become creative.
Absolutely.
And because now we're truly tapping into who we are as human beings, and that's a creative person.
Yep, 100% agree. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, usually at this segment, we ask our guests if they would impart some words of wisdom to the audience before we sign off for this episode. So, Rick, take it away.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if God really did put creativity into us, which I think he did, because we can see it in every other human being, then we can encourage other people to now tap into that creativity. But not only that, we can encourage ourselves to tap into that creativity, become who we truly are. And you're going to see changes. But I mean, in yourself and people around you. But society itself is geared to tell us that only the special people are creative, that it's not you, it's only the special people. And we have to recognize that is a lie. And so the by encouraging other people to now be creative, then we're helping that person to live to their fullest. And if everybody does that, then how much more will happen?
It'll be a better world, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly.
Definitely be better.
Reynold, tomorrow we should go out and start buying some ink stones, get back into calligraphy and painting. Okay, let's do that.
All right. I was thinking I was just
Rick,
going to go
thanks
back
for that.
to reading comic books or something.
No, start painting again. Start writing your
painting again.
Chinese characters. Okay.
All
Remember
right.
what Rick said. Every time every brush stroke counts.
It could be therapeutical, right? I know. It's like the strokes. Like even like you said, it's a process. Writing, even just writing words. I used to just do the words. I wasn't good at the painting stuff, but doing the calligraphy, because even the Chinese words, there's steps to writing each word. But when you do it with a brush, it's a whole new level.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Rick, we had such a wonderful time talking to you.
Yes.
Thank you for inspiring us to be creative again.
Yes, well, thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much again. Let me close us out. Thank you everyone for joining us. Please like and subscribe, and of course, sharing is caring. And until next time, everyone, thanks again.